Evening, y'all. Chief Prepper here. So I've been thinking about this particular thing for a few days, and unfortunately, Andy Sheckman, who is a gold and silver guy, put out a video with a guest, and basically the guest beat me to the punch. Uh, we as I'm going to say Americans, because we live better than most of the rest of the world. We are disassociated and disconnected from our environment, and specifically food. And that is a human nature problem. It's an animal problem. If you've ever hunted in the woods, then you know that animals, if they're in an area where they're hunted, will stay in the brush. If they're in an area where they're not hunted, they will travel open areas freely. And more than one animal will use the same game trail. So when I say animal and human nature is, we tend to choose the easier path. And the easier path for the last, I'm going to say 150 years, maybe 200 years, has been moving into cities where things that you need or want are easily available, i.e. food, i.e. water. There's something that most people, they may know in the back of their head, but they don't actually think about it. The entirety of the U.S. was and is settled by access to water. If you look at the migration patterns, as far back as they can be tracked, every single civilization has lived around water. So one of the reasons the cities would become such a hard place to be in is people will be literally, if there's any truth and validity to 1 second after, and the large cities, they're going to eat each other. We in America haven't been hungry in a really long time. You go without a meal, that's one thing. Go without a meal for a fucking week, that's another thing. So the guy said basically what I believe. You need to move away from cities, even small towns if you can, and you need to be hidden if possible. So you need to know how to live without leaving a footprint, or so people can, they come upon where you're at and they don't see you. They don't know you've been there. So this has already gone longer than the short that I had planned on, but if you had a chance, the interview is an hour, and it's an hour plus long video, but the guy basically talks about we're kind of to a point where we can't recover financially as a nation. We're too overextended. So he says financial collapse is, there's no way out of it. And he says the first thing they'll do is, which is what I called early this year or last year, that Trump will usher in digital currency. He said that will fail because it won't be backed by anything. He says it can be an overnight process, but he says when it happens, you're going to have complete shutdown. Diesel will stop flowing, credit stops working, and he said, gave the example of a loaf of bread on how much credit is involved in that bread getting from being made out of flour. The farmer has to take out credit for the diesel, the fertilizer, and the seeds to get them in the ground. He harvests them, he pays back, and then invests in next year's. That doesn't count the diesel to get that stuff to market, the processing of the whole wheat into flour, or the cost to transport the finished product to the shelves in the store. So people don't understand how that's going to be. I did do my top 3 And the fourth one would be, well, the top three is simple. It's you need water. Everybody worries about food and bullets and guns, but you die in 3 days without water. If you drink bad water, you're going to die a very horrible death because you're going to be shitting and puking yourself. You need to know where the closest non-tap water is and a way to get there and come back and transport water. You're going to need to be able to filter that water, purify it, boil it, make it potable water. You're going to need physical fitness. You're going to need mineral supplements, because when you go from a climate controlled environment to where you're doing work every day and you don't have mineral supplements, you're gonna have problems, especially if you're older. As we get older, we don't do as well. And you're gonna need backup power. I've always been a proponent of minimum dual fuel generators, so you can use propane and or gasoline, because gasoline has a finite shelf life. Propane's good for 10, 15 years in the tank. I would advise you to have solar and backup power batteries, backup battery bank. And then the fourth thing is your neighbors in the city or wherever you're at, if they are unprepared, and 90% of America is unprepared, are going to be your problem. Because if you have something and they don't have it, they're going to expect you to share, and initially they're going to ask. And when you say no, then you got a problem. So, the video with Andy Sheckman and the other guy, I can't remember his name, but they basically said if you don't have gold and silver, then you're screwed. So they did say that there could be a government confiscation of gold. So they covered that if you have what's called constitutional gold and silver, harder to do for them to confiscate. If you have gold necklace, gold jewelry, they might be able to come in and take that a lot easier. But they have to know you have it, okay? So you need to get less dependent upon the system. You know, people say, well, I'm off grid. Well, how are you off grid? Do you still go to a store of any kind? Do you still get deliveries to a post office box? Or if you're lucky, you're off grid, but you have a place for deliveries. Nobody's ever been off grid. Not truly off grid. The mountain men maybe, but not like, if you look at Little House on the Prairie and most of the westerns or stores like that, there was always a general store. There was always somewhere to go and order something. Now back then it was several months sometimes, depending on what you ordered, but it was available. So even back then, basically the video with Andy and the other guy was that there's going to be a collapse of the credit system, and it's going to be on purpose. The government's going to do it. So just think about everything that's going on right now: fires, attacks on water treatment plants, possible attacks on the grid, the combat zones that are currently live, the forecast of the lowest number of cows in the U.S. since the 1960s and 70s, I think. We have the New World screwworm, and they're opening up the Mexican border to Mexican beef again. The lowest wheat harvest in a long time. 10 products, 10 plate has gone up threefold, fourfold. So your canned goods are going to become short supply. That was verified. My wife said Benjamin Moore Paints has been doing hybrid cans, plastic and metal, and she said the lids are a bear to get on. Basically, I saw a video that basically said that Wolf brand chili, Vienna sausages, and canned soup are going to go away. And they're not advertising it. They're just going to go away. Because the cost of the can is more than the contents of the can. It's become cost prohibitive. If you have the ability, I would say in the next 6 months, that's about as long as you're going to have. Go buy some land, put a well in, put a septic tank in, preferably with trees around it so nobody can see you. Have a creek or a lake that you can get to. Basically, medicine, Jason Medical. They carry both daily prescriptions and prescription drugs. You just can't do narcotics through them. So we have alcohol on hand. There's just a lot. But the big problem is going to be the disassociation from our food and our ability to find water. It's going to be ugly when if it happens. Information is knowledge and power. Live a little, prep a lot, share the love. G Prepper out.